So we do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 members right now. So, Mr. Chair, we do have a quorum, and it is time.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to the first quarter meeting of the Dabney S. Lancaster Community College Local Board for the 2021 school year and call the meeting to order. And now I was going to deviate from the agenda and speak to Stephanie Clark on behalf of the board and extend our sympathy on the passing of her mother. So I guess we can go ahead and do that and get it in the minutes. And then number 2 on the agenda, I'd like to welcome Ingrid Barber as our newest member and look forward to working with you. Ingrid is representing Allegheny County. And number 3 is our minutes. I trust you've looked over the minutes, and if there are no questions or corrections, we can have a motion to approve.
Steve, before we do that, can I suggest that maybe at least the board members go around quickly and maybe introduce themselves for Ingrid's purpose? Sorry about that.
That's all right. I should have thought of that. Let's see. Andy, you want to start off? You in the middle there.
Good to see you again. I'm Andy Wolf. I represent the city of Buena Vista. We were together at the commencement. And welcome. It's a great committee, all doing good things. And Ingrid, your microphone's turned off.
Thank you. It's good seeing you again today.
Tony?
Hi, Ingrid. I'm Tony McFadden. I represent Rockbridge County. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you.
Rusty?
Hi, Ingrid. I'm Rusty Ford. I also represent Rockbridge County, and I hear there's a lot of news about your schools over there in Allegheny and Covington.
Marilyn?
I'm Ramona Garcia. You can't see me.
Go ahead, Ramona.
Hi, I'm here, but you can't see me.
And who do you represent?
Oh, Bath County Schools. Bath County. Hello.
Bill?
I'm in 2 different places all the time.
Bill?
Bill?
You want me to say hello?
Yes, please.
Yeah, Bill Hartsfield. I represent Allegheny County.
Marilyn?
Hi, Ingrid. This is Marilyn Alexander, and I represent the city of Lexington. Good to have you on board.
Nice to meet you.
Thank y'all.
Well,
I think Tammy is the...
Oh, excuse me, Tammy. Had you a staff.
Here I am. Yeah, well, but Ingrid and I know each other. We go back a long way. We've done many projects together, and we won't tell you about drinking wine together, but Ingrid and I know.
Great.
Okay, I guess we're back to the minutes then. Any questions or corrections to the minutes?
No.
Do I hear a motion that we approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Okay, Dr. Ranoni, I guess it's all yours for now.
Okay, well, thank you. I think what I'm going to do is share my screen and share the... Can everyone see the...
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I have just a couple of our staff people, and I'm going to ask the executive team as you come on, if for Ingrid's sake, is if you can just introduce yourself on your position. I have moved a couple of things around because a couple of people have appointments So I am going to ask Dr. Matt McGraw to go first. And he will give you an update, and then he's also got a proposal that's coming from him to the full board.
Thank you for that, Dr. Anoni. I have two short updates, and then we'll get to the proposal and the proposed action item. The first update is on the accreditation front with the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. I neglected to introduce myself. I'm Matt McGraw. I'm Associate Vice President of Institutional Effectiveness and Academic Services. Ingrid, we've met before, but I apologize for missing the introduction. So the first update is on behalf of SAC COC. You'll recall that last fall, we had a visiting team connected to our 5th year interim report. We submitted 2 reports. One was to an off-site committee and one was to an on-site committee. We had minor findings from both committees, and we received notification from the on-site team that no further action is needed from us at this time. So as far as the on-site committee is concerned, that's really the best possible outcome. They raised a few concerns, which we were able to address without further issue. We just submitted our response to the off-site committee about 2 weeks ago, and we should hear back from the commission by the end of the year, shortly before the annual meeting in December, about that. The second update is about the Achievement Center. This is our TRIO Student Support Services grant. You all recognize the Achievement Center is providing academic services, academic tutoring. They provide financial literacy training. They provide academic advising, and really they serve our most at-risk students at the college. And they were just refunded for an additional 5 years. So that's great news. Those grants are getting more competitive every year. And it's never a guarantee, but that's great news for us and great news for our students. And finally, the action item I'd like to bring before the board. In your supporting documents, you'll find my nomination for Mr. Bruce Olson. I'm nominating Bruce for the designation of faculty emeritus. This is a fairly common designation given at other colleges and universities in recognition for years of service and meritorious services and distinction during his time here. This is to my knowledge, it's the first time we have nominated a retired faculty member from Dabney for faculty emeritus. In the attached documents, you will find the Dabney policy, the VCCS policy, an explanation of how Bruce is qualified for the designation, and a handful of supporting letters from people who worked closely with Bruce throughout his 56-year career here at Dabney. Those of you who know Bruce, I'm sure if you know him, you respect him and love him as much as I do. Bruce was a full-time instructor here for 45 years. When he retired, he came back and continues to be an adjunct instructor. He's been here as an instructor for 56 years. At one time, and perhaps currently, although I was unable to confirm it, Bruce was the longest standing faculty member in the Virginia Community College system. And I believe that is the case today. All of the supporting documents are attached there. The 3 requirements, according to our policy, is that he have at least 15 years of service. Of course, he has 56. He has to have attained the rank of associate professor, which he has. And the third criteria is distinguished performance. And I would encourage you to look at the recommendations attached to the documents to illustrate his distinguished performance and service to the college. So with that, I'd like to see if there are any questions, and I'd like to ask the board to vote in favor of designating Bruce Olson as faculty emeritus.
Just to clarify that, and thanks to the work of Matt and April Tolley in HR, any faculty recognition for emeritus is a local board decision. In December, I may come to you requesting consideration for one of our past presidents to become president emeritus. And that has to be your recommendation to the state board. But any faculty designation is a local board decision.
Thank you for that, Dr. Marinoni. I would like to add one thing related to both this nomination and the nomination that Dr. Marinoni will bring forward in December. Since this is the first time we have sought an emeritus designation, there was some question about what privileges should be allowed for faculty and president emeriti. And we are, of course, this is in the packet, but in working with April Tolley, we are suggesting that emeriti be invited to march with the faculty at the college commencement ceremonies, full use of the college library, invited to our recognition and award ceremonies and other college-wide activities, and use of the college email address without being connected to the staff distribution list. We checked with other colleges in the Virginia Community College system, and those seem to be pretty standard privileges with these honors.
And what we will do is, because this is the first one, we'll create a nice certificate that we will frame of some designation. There's no, cash award, or there isn't anything sort of already designated, but I'm sure we'll reach out to one of our other sister colleges to steal some of their ideas about, and obviously we will present that to Bruce, hopefully soon, and somehow in person. It won't be at an actual event, but somehow in person.
If there isn't any more discussion, I would like, having known Bruce for many years and observed him and his dedication to the college, I'd like the honor of making this motion. I would ask that as you're doing a presentation in any sort of narrative, I think it would mean a great deal to him to also have his wife Anne acknowledged in some sentence somewhere, because she certainly did too. But I consider it an honor to make this motion for Bruce.
Second.
Second from Bill. Gary, I don't know if you want to offer anything, since you've worked with Bruce for 40 years. I know both of you started at 16, but
just about. Yes. Actually, you'll see a letter from me as part of the attachments, but I know Bruce well. He was a dedicated college student, college faculty member, and in my letter, I indicated that my oldest daughter and oldest son took classes for him or under him, either credit or non-credit, and both of them are very avid in exercise and wellness, and will tell you today that he really got them on that path, started them on that path, so being real serious about it, and it's just a great opportunity, I think, to acknowledge some of the many things that he did. My wife and I were talking about it, and she would bring up things from back when she was a student and Bruce was a faculty member. So yeah, he's in my opinion, he is well qualified for it and well deserving of the award or the designation.
So, Mr. Chair, we do have a motion and a second.
All right, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion carries.
Terrific.
Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Good. Thank you, Matt. We will go now to Angie Graham in Finance and Administration.
Hello, as Dr. Marinoni said, I'm Angie Graham, and I'm Vice President for Financial and Administrative Services, and I'm also the Emergency Management Coordinator here at the college. So today I'm going to present the local financial statements, and what I've done in the past is go through each one and just briefly talk about it. If you prefer a different method, if you just want for me to take questions, you guys tell me how you want it. If you're fine with the way I've done it in the past, then I'll go ahead and proceed with that procedure.
Personally, I think that's fine, Angie.
Okay. Okay, so we'll start with the agency funds. This is page 1. And basically, these are mainly all the club accounts that we have at the college. You'll see the check clearing account is also in there, included in there. And basically, it is used to place rental deposits, like if we have rental for the armory or anything like that. And we put them there and then we refund them after the event. It's also used when wire transfers are received in local instead of in the state account. That happens sometimes. And at the end of the year, there was $30,000 remaining, and those were the funds for career coach salaries from the schools that schools wish to prepay. So we just placed them in there. And I will just keep going until I hear a question about one of these. The next is Bookstore LGIP, and basically this is our savings. The statement shows the interest paid on the Bookstore LGIP balance, and it actually decreased this year. Last year the interest was $5,800, and this year it was only $33,000. However, we did take out $60,000 last year to cover dual enrollment scholarships. The next one is the College Board President's account. And pilot commissions are used to fund this account. And the reason why we use commissions is because some of the expenditures aren't allowed. They aren't an allowed state purchase. For example, retirement receptions or lunches or travel over state guidelines. So we have to use the commission funds to cover those. The expenses are higher last fiscal year due to athletics. Okay, parking. The funds in the parking account are being used to save for future parking space improvements. And last year we upgraded the parking lot lights to LED lights. If you're on campus at night, it's much brighter than it used to be. And the amount in there this year, $70,000, will be used for parking lot renovations. Okay, plant fund changes in fund balance. These funds are pulled in order to provide funding for maintenance projects. These funds were also utilized for dual enrollment scholarships last year.
What makes something available for dual enrollment scholarships?
Yes, definitely. And I believe there may be a little bit in the foundation, but yeah. Okay, the next one is the pool fund. Basically, this is another savings account for us. And the reason why we use LGIP is because it's available to us fairly quickly if we needed to turn it into cash. And this amount also decreased in fiscal year 20. In fiscal year 20 it was $3,100, and last fiscal year is $4,500. And the Rockbridge account, that's basically the money we receive from localities for the Rockbridge Center, and it is always moved over to state to cover the lease. Follett Bookstore scholarships. Annually, Follett provides a bookstore scholarship for students. And this year, the funds were provided to the DSLCC Educational Foundation, and they weren't received in this actual account. However, a few years ago, we started Include Ed pilot, and so Follett provided a $5,000 incentive, and that was to cover any rental books. that weren't returned from the students. We do not currently utilize Include Ed, so the funds that are in this account will be used to provide scholarships. Okay, local board scholarships. These are contributions from localities used to fund student scholarships, and scholarships are awarded by the financial aid director. And you'll see we only have $21 currently in this account. And now we have the dual enrollment scholarships that I've been talking about.
Can you back up for a second, Angie? What, the local board scholarships, that you said those come from the municipalities?
Yes, we basically, the funding that we get from all the localities, we decide which pot it goes into. And we haven't actually increased this in the last few years because we didn't have the funding to do so. We've been carrying over a small balance, and you'll see last year we actually awarded a scholarship for $472, which pretty much took all of the amount that was in there.
So is this something that we should be asking for, or is it just something that's there?
This is something that we already asked for. It's part of the local, you'll see at the end, I'll show you how much we get each year from localities.
Okay.
And we use it every now and, it's whenever we have the funding to actually put into the scholarships. And we have not had the funding to do that in the last few years. But so basically we just use the money that we've already asked for. It's not, we don't ask specifically for scholarships.
Could the Rotary Club donate designating for that fund? I mean, to put money in it?
Well, normally.
That would be a better question for the foundation, Andy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and normally any scholarships that we receive from outside sources are normally placed with the foundation. The only reason why we do not with any of these is we decide who gets the scholarship. So if it's, or the donor decides. So with the foundation, the donors cannot decide. They just have to provide the scholarship money, and the foundation decides who receives the scholarships.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so the dual enrollment scholarships, these funds were awarded to dual enrollment students who were taking classes on campus instead of at the high school. We provided some funding for that. However, in fiscal year 21, students taking classes on campus will not be provided a scholarship from this fund. And our high schools in fiscal year 21 will be charged a fee for the because we're not allowed to waive the fee. We waive the tuition, but schools have to provide the fees this year. And if you'll look at the balance, that $10,000, that's what Bath County and Rockbridge County High School paid in advance for those fees. So as we invoice or prepare the invoices for those two schools, we'll use this funding instead of actually sending them the invoice. Okay, the next one are the restricted scholarships. So these are some of the scholarships we received that directly specify who is to receive the award. And you'll see that there's a small balance, and that balance will be, it's for scholarships that will be dispersed in the summer and the fall. Okay, the next one is student activities. This is where all the fees for student activities is deposited, and it pays the director's salary. And this year they did not use all, normally they use all of it in one year, but this year they did not, and it's probably because we closed in March, so we didn't have some of the activities that we normally have. these funds will just carry forward to next year. Okay, vending. The Follett Commission actually increased slightly over last fiscal year. It was 28,100, and this year it was 28,800. And that's our bookstore our bookstore commissions. And the vending sales was it decreased again this year. However, if you take into consideration that we were closed after middle of March, then we probably would have actually had an increase in vending sales. And we did we do have a new contract. So we're hoping that that is better. I think the coffee machine previously hardly ever worked. So we did lose some sales just because the previous vendor wasn't doing a very good job maintaining things. So we're hoping that our vending sales will increase. And again, these vending commission funds are used for any purchases that we need to make that state funds are not allowed to be used for. Okay, this is just the local funds bank reconciliation. No outstanding deposits and 4 outstanding checks at the end of the last fiscal year. Okay, and this is the local funds contribution request that we sent out. So basically this is what each locality pays. And then we determine most of Rockbridge and Lexington, those funds go to support the Rockbridge lease. And the other funds we determine if it gets put into scholarship.
And just as a note, this year we will, we've had a decrease from Botetourt County and the city of Covington. So those amounts will be lower.
The next is just a listing of all of our federal grants. These are amounts actually spent in fiscal year 20, not necessarily the total grant award. The amount increased this year by $216,000, and that was mainly due to the AP 220 grant that provide scholarships to students. Next one is the additional grants that these are state or local grants. And again, these are amounts spent in fiscal year 20, not the total grant award. The grants increased by $3,300. And the chancellor's grants are funded. We get those grants because Northern Virginia is able to charge a higher tuition, and then they return some of the additional revenue back to the VCCS, who awards grants to the other colleges. And the next is financial aid awards. These are awards that the students received. So they were for expenses like tuition, fees, books, and they also include the amount that the students received as balance checks. Pell remained the same, and loans actually decreased by $214,000. Pell last year was 1.3, and again it's 1.3. And the Stafford loans in fiscal year 19 was $782,000, and this year it was only $567,000. So to me, that's a good sign. Students they're getting their needs met without having to take out additional loans. Okay, and the last item are the debt recoveries. So this just shows you how much of the debt that we have was collected. We had $36,000 that was collected, and last year it was 32,000. You'll see the main source is debt set off. So basically what we do, students are flagged to ensure that they can't register or receive transcripts until a debt is paid. And then they are listed with debt set off, and we can get state tax money if they had a refund available. We actually had a pretty good amount from student payments, and normally that happens if a student wants to return or they need to clear their debt so they can purchase a house or a car or some other type of loan that they need. And that is all. Are there any questions about any of the financial statements?
So this is presented once a year and usually in September at the September board meeting.
I had a question, Dr. Ranoni. How are y'all?
Hi, Stephanie.
My question was, how much did the city of Covington decrease us in Botetourt? Was it quite a bit? And why did they decrease? Was it just because of
Well, the city of Covington cut 10% for all their support across the board.
Okay.
I had actually asked them for 2 years in a row for an increase of a flat $4,000. And last year we got flat funding. And this year, when I first got the initial request, which would be less than $3,000, I did respectfully emailed back for reconsideration because based on the numbers of students that we serve from Covington, the amount of money paid by the city to the college equates to only $5.13 per student that they support the number of students. It was primarily because of the the taxes. Certainly the pandemic had a lot to do with it.
Right.
And Botetourt was in a similar manner, and that's really the first time that they've been giving us more dollars. We haven't had an increase from Covington or really Allegheny since 2010.
Really? And the city, well, I guess the town of Buena Vista and Lexington didn't decrease us?
No, they did not. No, the cities of Lexington, they came in at flat, which we felt that this year was a win.
Oh, I agree with that. Okay. I was just curious because I was going to ask the city council. I can't figure out why we got such a cut and a decrease, but I'll talk to you about that another day. But thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
May I just ask, extending on what Stephanie had just brought up, do we have an average number that comes from the municipalities to the students from their, how much does Buena Vista pay per student that's in the system?
No, and Andy, that's a great question. For a couple of years, Phyllis and I have really tried to find out. There's no state formula on what should be recommended. Should it be $8 a student, $10 a student, whatever. We have asked. The only 3 municipalities that we have asked for an increase over the last 2 to 3 years has been the city of Lexington, the city of Covington, and Allegheny County, because the other 4, a couple of years ago, they give us scholarship money for our Dabney Promise program. Those 3 communities do not give us money. And when we asked, they did not give us any dollars for Dabney Promise. And that money goes to the foundation for them to build up. So we just felt like the other 4 had given us an increase. Buena Vista gives us $4,000 a year for Dabney Promise. Even Bath County gives us $2,500. So we had asked for just an increase, and not even necessarily for Dabney Promise, but just an increase. And those three, up until this year, had not given us an increase. And Covington and Botetourt, even though they do give us, they had to cut us by 10%.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, we do, even though it's listed later, we can take the approval, the motion and the second for the financials.
Okay. Do I hear a motion that we approve the financial statement?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
I just ordered one of these.
All right. Did I hear a second?
You did.
All right. Motion been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The financial statement carries.
All right. Thank you, Angie.
Yes. Thank you, Angie.
So, Mr. Chair, if you would like to, Stephanie is on now.
All
Call, if you want to just.
Okay, Stephanie, on behalf of the board, I'd like to extend our sympathy to you on the passing of your mother. We were so sorry to hear that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your condolences. It means a lot.
Okay, so we will turn now to Dr. Ben Worth.
Thank you. I'm going to be giving some updates on academics. So we also have an action item on approval of the advisory committee members, which you should have in your email. I want to start first by just a general update about safety around campus. I am very pleased with where we are right now with the good work that's been done with our reopening plan. I believe, as all of you are aware, we have moved all of our lecture classes online, and we're reserving campus activity for those classes that have important hands-on components. So our biology, chemistry, and physics labs, they're meeting on ground as needed. The hands-on programs, electronics, welding, nursing, those classes are also meeting on ground. And so far, it's been working really well for us. I want to thank all the members of the reopening team and executive team who helped put that plan together. I want to thank all of our faculty who've been very thoughtful and deliberative about how we safely run our on-ground classes. They're doing some really clever things. I've got in my science classes where once students were coming once a week for 3 hours, they're now coming in groups for an hour every other week. It allows them to get that important experience in the lab, so they get that experience, but we're supplementing some of the labs with simulations. I've got one of the examples I like to tell. Some of our biology students are going to be coming on campus to pick up a sheep heart, and we'll take that home and dissect it we'll be on Zoom with their instructor. We've got in our physics class, we've got students with some electronics equipment, these little Arduino boards, and they take those home and work on physics experiments that way. So what we're doing is being very deliberative. So when students are on campus, they're wearing their masks, they're social distancing, and it's happening very safely. In my welding class, my instructor has this very fancy welding mask. He looks like Darth Vader, and it's an N95 mask that also not only filters out any of the fumes from the welding lab, but also protects him from any possible COVID exposure. Allows him to work in a welding booth right alongside another welding student. In our other classes like nursing, the skill checks are done with a 10-to-1 ratio. We're supplementing a lot of simulation with work that would have happened in a clinical setting, and we're making it work. So my thanks to the executive team and my thanks to our faculty for some good work there. I do want to remind you, we have new faculty. Tamara Lipscomb is now program head for information systems technology. You may remember that name. Ms. Lipscomb was formerly the director of technical services at the college. I believe all of you know Rachel Thompson. She ran the Educational Foundation. She's now our program head for business. Sandra McHenry joins us in biology. She does a lot of our anatomy and physiology classes. I'm meeting with all of our faculty in a year-long new faculty seminar. We meet once a month. It's a way of doing an orientation to the life of a college professor and the expectations of faculty, but doing it periodically throughout the year so we don't overload everyone at the start of the semester. That series has its second meeting this week. I've been real pleased with how that's been running along. On the curricular side, there will be some curriculum changes that will come in front of the local board. We will not be as busy as we were last year. You may remember with the G3 program, we had a lot of short-term credentials that we created for G3. Now, unfortunately, G3 is on hold. We are hoping that it will return in a significant way of fall 2021. And when it does, we will be ready for it. It is a great program. It has a lot of potential. And as we look at how we're going to move the country forward out of the pandemic and out of the situation we're in economically, the opportunity of doing short-term training that leads to high-wage jobs, community colleges, I think are well positioned to help in that arena. But there are some new curriculum you're going to see. We're been working with the system on development of an Amazon Web Services credential. That career studies certificate will come before you. There is some minor cleanup to some of our other credentials, unmanned aerial systems. Stephen Snyder is an adjunct instructor. He's working with us to retool that program. I'm excited to see that move forward. Want to mention that the emergency medical services program is moving over to workforce. That program had been run as a credit program. Andrew Isaacs, who's on the Rockbridge County EMS squad, is our adjunct who's providing instruction in that area. This will make the program fast forward eligible. On another note related to academics, I've been working with Dr. Renoni and our diversity committee to run a reading group around a book called The Inner Work of Racial Justice. We've had 2 meetings so far. I've been really impressed at the conversations that we're having. Tammy Scruggs-Duncan is also joining us for those readings. Tammy, welcome, and Stephanie, I believe, is going to be able to join us also. And it's been a very remarkable experience for me to be part of. I've been really humbled by the conversations that we've been having, and it's going to be a good for all the members of the group and a good thing for the college as well. So with that update, I want to move over to the approval of the advisory board membership. That information was sent out last week. There was an update to the business program that was sent out today. Andy, I do note that Jennifer Balke, who was formerly at Perry McClure High School, is now at Rockbridge County High School. And we will make a note of that. She continues to serve as our on that advisory board. And I will stop. Yes.
Donna, on the information systems technology, Donna Frazier retired.
Yes.
So I don't know if she's continuing, but she's not at school.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, this is our annual approval in September of advisory committee members. So we do need a motion and a second.
All right. Do we approve them as a whole, or we go one by one?
No, as a whole is fine.
Okay. Do I hear a motion that we approve the advisory board committees? A second? All right, we've had a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the advisory board committees?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Yeah, the advisory board committees carry.
Okay, thank you, Ben.
For that. Thank you.
Gary Keener.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Gary Keener. I'm Vice President of Workforce Solutions and Community Education. Ingrid, welcome. Know Ingrid well, so look forward to working with you in this role. I have a few brief updates. Actually, I could probably be here for half an hour or so, but I don't want to take up that much of your time. You got a busy schedule right now. So anyway, I do want to talk about a couple things. The last time we talked, when we shut down in March, and this is in the workforce and the fast forward programs, we had around between 110, 125 individuals that needed to complete their programs. And just like Dr. Worth said, that's no easy task when pretty much everything they had to do was hands-on of some kind. Well, there was a point in time we couldn't do anything. We had people in CDL programs that you couldn't finish. There's no way we could get them finished simply because of the rules. But as things moved along, we were able to make some different, put our plan together and submit it, get it approved, and move forward. And I'm happy to say right now, other than a few individuals whose their schedules just hasn't worked, and we haven't given up on them. We're not going to give up on anybody that's got the program. Other than a few individuals, everybody's finished and has completed their programs. I would venture to say it's probably no more than 5 that we're having to work with on an individual basis. But we decided we're going to do what it takes to get them through if they're willing to do that. So that was being like Dr. Worth said, it's no easy task when you're trying to do everything hands-on. If you think about programs like we offer massage therapy, well, that's truly a hands-on program. I mean, by every definition of the word, that program's hands-on. So things like that, we had to really put some very stringent rules in place, regulations to follow all the guidelines and all. But we're there. I think we're getting there. By doing that, we had to use a lot of our instructors, and we had to pay some more money because in some cases, instead of having 8 or 10 in the lab, we'd have 4. They do 4 at a time. So we end up spending a little more money, but we made the decision we're going to get these individuals through because they came into it with good faith. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't our fault. So we were going to work to get it done. So our instructors did a great job. Many of them never did anything virtual at all. And all of a sudden they're using Canvas. They're moving a lot of their lecture things to virtual, so we can have more hybrid programs now and be more flexible. So that was kind of we were moving that way in some of our programs. I told somebody we went from a jog to a sprint. I mean, all of a sudden we had no choice. I mean, if we were going to get all the lecture part done, and just sit and get ready for that, that's what we had to do. So they did a great job of doing that, did professional development, did work on their own, and then that's going to be a big benefit for us in the future. Actually, this session we're in now, we're doing some of our classes hybrid that we would not even have thought about doing until then. So that was a good thing. And then I give a fast forward update. We did move some of our classes back a little bit because we were in the process of finishing things up. So we moved some of our classes back. So we still have some classes that haven't started yet. And I talked to Brooke Sheehan this morning, our career coach, and she was just busy. She could be getting people enrolled. But as of 12 noon, our enrollments stand at 80 enrollments. CDL leading the pack again. CDL, CMA, and massage therapy right now are the 3 programs that are leading the pack as far as enrollments go. Our programs in skilled programs like HVAC, electrical, that enrollment's increasing as well too. So we're happy to see that going in the right direction. I'd mentioned before, I think I'd mentioned before this group that our plan is to have a full tractor trailer unit in Rockbridge County. The tractor is on order. We already have the trailer here, so hopefully within a few months, provided we find a place to park it, and we're talking to some people about that, we will have that complete program set up there as well too. Still be run by our program head in CDL, but hopefully we'll be able to do that. And had an interesting call the other day, and and it was a call to all the chief workforce officers in the VCCS, and it came from the system office. And basically the question was posed to us, if you would have a enrollment increase that would triple next year, maybe even next semester, would you be able to handle it? Well, the first, my answer to that was probably not, but we'd figure out how to handle it. We wouldn't have any choice. We're not going to turn people away. But I say that because there's a lot of thinking now, especially in fast forward programs, credential programs, that enrollment could explode in those areas. So the work and a lot of the discussions we're having now is what happens, how do we handle a major increase like that if these things come along? So it's really spurred. I'm having some discussions with my counterparts at Central, Virginia Western, and New River about how can we work together if something like this happens to make, for example, share faculty members, share trainers, and things like that. So kind of an interesting question to start off with, and we hope it increases, obviously, and we'll see what it does and hopefully get ready for it, because there's a lot of people out there, as we know right now, need jobs, and they need, things are tough right now in a lot of areas. And I always look at CDL, because CDL is a program where individuals, if they're interested in that, can get certified in a short period of time and get a job, and get a job that pays good money and they can support their family. So that's what I have right now. And anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Gary. So our next one, and I introduced him in June, but for Ingrid and for those that were unable to join us in June, I'm pleased to introduce Dr. James Cook, who's our new Director of Institutional Advancement and Executive Director of our Educational Foundation.
Thank you, John. I hope that crash was from your cat.
No, it was actually my wife came in the house and knocked something over. So sorry, I apologize for that.
Welcome home.
Yeah.
Ingrid, it's good to meet you. I hope to do this face-to-face someday. I'm probably one of the most unique hires here because I have a 40% hat that I wear with the College of the Institutional Advancement, which covers marketing. It covers our messaging. I'm the public information officer, and I do some of the fundraising for the college. But I also wear a 60% hat for the Educational Foundation as the executive director, in which we do the fundraising for, scholarships, endowed funds. We're trying to move into some endowed chair positions, and some other type of fundraising strategies. So hopefully we can talk about your experience someday, and then don't hold it against me when I ask you for some money later on. I was told to keep the remarks short on this one, and it's a good thing because really there's only one update to give on this, and that is our virtual wine tasting that we did. Our virtual wine tasting our focus was to hit or to focus on Rockbridge County. We do a lot of fundraising in Allegheny, Covington, Clifton Forge area, and Bath, but we don't have a large donor base in the Rockbridge County area. So the virtual wine tasting was just to, see if we can get our feet wet. We did a virtual tasting and pairing with the Red Hen Restaurant. And in that, our goal was to raise just $1,500 for our student emergency fund. We ended up having 60 participants in this event with 22 first-time donors that came on board. We raised over $3,815 for the virtual wine tasting itself, which netted $2,315 for the student emergency funds. So we exceeded our goals, which is now going to launch us into our next fundraising event, which is going to happen in February, which I can't get into the details yet on that, other than it's going to involve 4 localities. So it'll involve Rockbridge County for one portion of it, Botetourt for another portion, Covington, Clifton Forge, Allegheny for another portion, and Bath for the final. And it'll be progressive and virtual. So it's a pretty neat event, and I've got about 3 of our chefs lined up for it. That barring any questions, that concludes my part.
How did you drink wine virtually?
Carefully.
Long straw.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
We, in the partnership with the Red Hand, we also partnered with the Washington Street Purveyors. And what we did is we took orders for wine, and there was a red wine and a white wine. And orders, part of that was the pairing that the Red Hand did with it. So on the day of the event, you either came to the Rockbridge Regional Center or to the main campus, and you drove by, we brought out your wine and your food, and you were given a Zoom code. And then you logged in at 6 o'clock. We actually were fortunate on this one because Stephanie Wilkinson was going to be our host with Poopy McCleskey, who was the wine distributor. We ended up having the actual wine maker from Italy join us by Zoom and give us a discussion of his winery and the history of it. So it was a great event, and he's very charismatic, and that made the drinking even a little bit more fun.
Yeah.
I want to do a quick shout out. That was so well orchestrated. Thank you, James. It was, and I've heard lots of great feedback from everyone who participated.
And he did that from it was 1 a.m. in Italy, but he was fabulous. So
I second that. That was great.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the updates. Unfortunately, Joe Hagee could not join us, but the only update from Student Services, they continue to work hard, and you'll hear it from the enrollment numbers that I'll give it to you in a second, is that we launched, we've been wanting to try to do this for a couple of years, and the pandemic sort of forced the issue. We launched an online new student orientation. We partnered with the company. All the videos, everything is a virtual. It's interactive and everything. And maybe at a future meeting, we can actually show you, a couple of the clips for it and everything. We were able to use some CARES Act dollars for it because it was actually, it was a legitimate expense. So we were excited about that. And I know Joe and his team have been spending a lot of time on that. So, and then the last thing is HR. We did not get a personnel report, but if we get one, I will pass that on. The bottom line is that the state still has a hiring freeze for any classified positions. So we do have openings that unfortunately is putting some burden on some of our offices because of certainly because of lack of staff. But our hope is that possibly as early as by the end of this month, we will have the hiring freeze lifted. Okay. There is a question. Okay, so, okay. Are there any questions about that? Let me get into enrollment, which is, I always love this part, especially when it's positive. This summer's enrollment, we increased by 22%. Okay, as an increase, 22%. That was, we were able to use some CARES Act, and we provided some scholarships in the to the recently graduated high school students, and we were able to offer them a special student development class, which was a 2-credit class that would have been accepted at any of the VCCS schools. We had close to 90 students take advantage of that. Really was a great, potentially even a great model for, for the future. This fall, another good news is as of today, we are still up over 10%. I can tell you, we are only one of 4 of our sister colleges up in enrollment in the fall. Everyone has, so our base enrollment, which is our traditional students, is about even. And our dual enrollment is expected to increase. And that's what has actually pushed us up at this point. So really great news all around. Right now, we budgeted going into this year, I think we budgeted a 5% decrease. The other thing that we budgeted was a 5% decrease from the governor's office. And as of the initial plan that he laid out, which was version number 17 of his budget, it held higher education harmless. So if that is the final budget that gets approved, there's no new thing. So Ben mentioned, any new initiatives like G3, that won't happen this year. But any new, what we're hoping for is that we hold on to what we have. So if that's the case, we will then be able to have that 5% that was designated. It was close to $200,000 that was designated that we were thinking about that we may end up losing. Are there any questions on that?
I have one. Do you have any numbers on how many students in dual enrollment are coming from those particular high schools?
Yes, we could. Yeah, I mean, we could certainly, once we get all the enrollments in, we could certainly provide that number.
Okay.
Yeah, Michelle Cassix has oversight of our dual enrollment. She carefully tracks all of that, so I can get that to you, Marilyn.
Okay. Thank you.
We have, I think, almost all of the data from our high schools, but as you well know, the high schools have been really challenged with their reopening plans. So I think we're still waiting for final enrollment to take place. So I'll see that you get that.
Okay. Thanks.
We are expecting a significant increase from Botetourt County in dual enrollment than over last year. So I'm certainly hoping that overall we will. I think we are actually, the number today I saw, we were actually over the final number of last year at this time. So let's just hope that we can at least keep it there and add some additional students.
Great.
The next item is so every year, just as a reminder, every year I'm required to put together basically what they call the president's goals, but in essence, they're institutional goals that not only have to relate to the college's strategic plan, but also to the Virginia Community College's strategic plan. Well, this year was a little different, where the institutional goals were pretty much all centered on COVID. Okay. So you were provided the 2021 institutional goals, and the questions that were asked came directly from the governor's office. And this is the tool that the governor used toward my review. For those that were at the meeting in June, all of you went into executive session and you do your annual review of me, and then you submit communication in a letter format to the chancellor. And that was part of the packet and our discussion, which was very interesting because this was the first one we've ever done virtually. Usually I'm driving to Richmond. I drive the 5-hour round trip to stay about an hour. And this one actually lasted an hour and a half. So it was kind of ironic that this was the longest one. I think he was bored, so he just wanted to continue to talk, which was fine. But basically what I present to you is input from all of the executive committee members and has been reviewed and approved by the chancellor. So normally I would present this to you before the chancellor, but because of the timing of things, it just never happened. So we will need approval and of the institutional goals.
Anyone have any questions before we approve this? If not, do I hear a motion that we approve the institutional priorities?
Move to approve the institutional goals.
A second.
Marilyn and Tammy. Okay.
We've had a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, Dr.
Okay.
Nunn, it looks like you passed.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. The next item is just a very brief update about commencement, which was Saturday. And I do want to thank Steve and Andy and Ingrid for joining us. We were determined to hold graduation in person. We didn't know when we were going to be able to do that. And what we were able to do, and really was a team effort, truly a team effort, was we held two smaller commencements on Saturday, one at 10, one at 2. We were scheduled to have 39 graduates participate in each one. Our records clerk actually looked at the total number of graduates as they RSVP'd, and then we determined where we would put the graduates. We knew, for example, nursing was going to be one of the largest, along with general studies. So the likelihood is they would not be at the same graduation. Okay, so we ended up splitting them. And we pretty much came up with even. Now, not everyone actually attended who said they were coming, which ended up being fine. But it was a great event. Each event took just under an hour. The clock on the podium said it was about 59 minutes, I think, on each one. We did do the nursing pinning at the second one as well. We gave them the opportunity to have the nursing pinning. So the second one was primarily all nurses and some other workforce credential students. We did it in a very safe and everyone was very respectful. We required masks on during the entire event. Once families could only be limited to 4 individuals, 4 guests. It looked like a very sparse crowd, but that was the whole point. The crowd was sparse. We only had on the bleachers, we ended up only having, in essence, 3 rows, and the back row, 1 in the middle and 1 toward the front, times I think there was 1, 2, 3, so 6, 12 stations. We had escorts that we actually had individuals, a number of members of the executive team actually escorted the guests to their seats, and we asked them not to move for the entire event, which actually was pretty well done. It was pretty well done. The graduates the graduates and faculty and staff. If you've participated in our graduation in the past, everything that you remember from that graduation was completely opposite. That was really how I described it, because normally, the faculty and staff might walk in first, or the students walk in first. The platform party walks in. The platform party ends up walking in, and last. Well, we were first. The platform party only consisted of Ben and I. We were the only 2. So the commencement, I'm happy we did it. I think what we did went well, and it seemed to be meaningful for the graduates. The next item, just quickly, is the new strategic planning process. Yes, even during this time of COVID, our strategic plan ends by next June. So I am working with Matt McGraw, and I will pull together a small committee. There will be a strategic planning survey that goes out probably in the next couple of weeks, similar to what we did 6 years ago when we put our plan together to get community input. I will also be hosting some virtual community forums, similar to what I did when I first arrived at the college, to learn more about people's perceptions and things, but I will do that really with the focus around strategic planning. And hopefully we will be able to present a draft strategic plan maybe as early as next March to the board, but certainly by June with the final one for your approval. And the last item under this that I have is we continue to move pretty aggressively with the Rockbridge Workforce Center, that we are awaiting the donation that we received from the Radcliffe Foundation for that building. Once we receive that gift, we will then be able to purchase the former Ford dealership building from a individual who actually bought the building in March because he did not want the building to get sold under us. And what he will do is actually donate it to us at a lower rate. So the difference will be his donation. We have received a grant for about $170,000 from the USDA Rural Development for the architect and engineering fees. And by the end of this week, it is my hope that I will submit a $2.7 to $2.8 million request from U.S. Economic Development Administration for the entire renovations of the building. I actually have a call with the Virginia rep tomorrow morning to finalize things. Gary Keener has been assisting us on getting letters of support from business and industry. The Roanoke Allegheny Regional Planning Commission actually did a economic impact study for us on that building because the Shenandoah Valley, the Central Shenandoah Valley Planning District, they don't have the tools, and because we actually are served by two planning districts, Roanoke, Allegheny offered to do it for us at no cost, which was very kind. And I think that we will be able to present a very strong proposal to that. The question is, which Ford dealership are we speaking of? It is the one on Forest Avenue in Buena Vista.
Courtesy Motors is what it went by.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't remember what it was. It is not replacing our Rockbridge Regional Center, just as a clarification. It is, and basically we will turn it into a workforce. So all of Gary's programming, like what he talked about, HVAC, welding, machining, diesel mechanic, possibly some, as well as CDL, which we can't offer in the Rockbridge region now because we don't have space for it. That will be the vision, and ultimately we will deliver all those programs in that center. Plus, we will also have a space for a future entrepreneurial center, a business incubator, and probably a maker space that we will actually rent out some of these offices to potential small businesses. And because we partner with the Advancement Foundation to run the gauntlet, as we've run them in Allegheny County for the last 3 years, we will also be, and we have run it, partnered with them to run it in Rockbridge this past year. Now we will provide the support behind the gauntlet as well. Any questions on that? Okay. So, first of all, thank you for your willingness to modify the start time, and the reason why was because I knew we would have some significant conversations at this point about the next item, but also I actually started teaching a class for the college this fall, and my class is at 6 p.m. So on Mondays. So the goal was to try to finish by about 5 minutes to 6 if we needed to go all that way. Mr. Chair, the 4 items that we actually had listed for approval, we have actually already approved. So the discussion, unless you had anything on the chair's report.
No, I have nothing. I think we've covered things.
Okay. So so really for the discussion is on the state board's resolution that I have shared with all of you. Okay. And so far what the draft findings were. And I've had multiple conversations with Steve Vaughn about sort of our approach. I'm sorry I didn't, let me see if I can actually, I'll bring up the resolution. Okay, I will, let me open the resolution. Why is it not opening for me? Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing and reshare what the resolution was. As a reminder, so back in July, the state board, the chancellor actually shared this originally with the presidents. Can everyone see that? I just want to double check.
Yes.
So, okay. So the chancellor shared with the presidents in probably June this type of resolution, and originally had asked that it would be approved in July by the state board, and was asking the local boards to respond within 90 days. Well, of course, the presidents are saying, time out. We have the start of class. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We need at least through December. Well, he came back with even better and said that we had until March. So Steve and I's approach and thought would be that we would, if there was any recommendations of any kind from the board, we would have a discussion in September. We would have a discussion again in December if necessary. And if there was any recommendation, we could make the recommendations in December, but otherwise that still left us another time to meet, to actually meet in March before the end of March. Okay, the state board will actually meet in April. They always, they will end up meeting, no, I'm sorry. They will meet late in March, okay, at the regular scheduled. So ultimately you can read the resolution. It was unanimously approved on July 16th at the state board meeting. And they have asked every local board, okay, local advisory boards of each of the colleges to review the appropriateness of the college campuses, the facilities names, and report back on or before the regularly scheduled March 2021 meeting of the state board. Okay, with facility name changes it has made and recommendations regarding the college and campus names should there be any changes. So let me clarify that the state board has the authority to name community colleges or approve any changes of the names of the colleges. It does not have the authority. Okay, that's where you come in. Your authority is actually on the buildings. Okay, your authority is the buildings, are the buildings. I can tell you that a number of our fellow colleges have begun to, they started in June to actually begin reviewing the college names and building names. There are 7 colleges in the Virginia Community College system that are named after a person. Okay. So from the college's name perspective, it certainly are looking at those 7. Mountain Empire is Mountain Empire. Virginia Western is Virginia Western. Blue Ridge is Blue Ridge. But John Tyler Community College or Patrick Henry, okay, or J. Sargent Reynolds, or Paul DeCamp, or Dabney Lancaster are the ones that are going to get scrutinized the most, okay? And I know I've missed a couple, but you get the point, okay? So what some of us have done, and I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and I am going to share another document with you. We are going to, I'm going to skip this first, okay? So what we did was, I just started this document. I'll go back up here. Okay, college name, building, year it was named, who it was named for, and then what I called findings. We have not exhausted our work because some of us are doing this in between of other things, okay? So I'll come to the college name second. So Scott Hall, as an example, 1981 after Elizabeth A. Scott. And I've had Nova Wright, who is our director of our library. Dr. James Cook has been involved with finding information from any donor perspective. Myself, Nova, for example, has been in contact multiple times with Longwood University because Dabney Lancaster was the former president when it was called Longwood College. Okay. Hold on one second. Somebody asked me if I can no. I'm trying to make this larger.
John, if you go to the bottom where it shows the ratio at the very bottom of the screen, you can slide that over or hit the plus until it gets to about 130. There you go.
Okay. So every building is named with the exception of our facilities building. Okay. That is just called buildings and grounds. All right. That one has never been named. And only, for the most part, only one building is named because there was a gift. There are other people who have buildings after that are named, but it wasn't because their gifts have not been large enough. The only building I can tell you, there is one college who has every building named because that individual has given significant dollars. 3 of the buildings are in question. And if they choose to change the name of the building, their foundation will have to give their money back. And there's a question at the original amount or at today's rate. Okay. So I think personally, and this is observation, and I will be happy to share this with you. I don't think we will have any issues with our buildings. I have not found anything, okay, in question about our buildings. All right. I knew that the first week that this came out, Northern Virginia had started to look, and they had already said that they had to change 4 of their buildings on their 6 campuses because there were serious questions about who they were named after. Okay. So from a building perspective, you know, Mrs. Scott, you know, she practically donated her time to Dabney. I have found a lot of this in a combination of online, either an obituary, okay, or any other public publications. Warren Hall is named after Dr. Thomas Warren. Okay. Obviously, Backles Hall is named after our 2nd president. I didn't put a great deal of info on here, but I will as we get closer. But, you know, Dr. Backles, I think some of us know him very well. The Mumma Center is named after Ben Klein Mumma Jr. It's the same Mumma that Lake Mumma is named after. Okay. And there were no issues with him. McCarthy was the only one that actually had a donation. Okay, she was native and longtime residents of Allegheny. She taught high school in Bath County. And frankly, there wasn't anything I could find in question of Mrs. McCarthy. The Armory actually has 2 names on it. One of them is the Gary Lee Miller Armory. And for those that were at graduation, you heard that annually we award to the student award, a Gary Lee Miller Award, student award. So here is what I could find about Gary Lee Miller. And then the last piece of that is the Hale Collins Convocation Center, which was the other side of the Armory. And he is a longtime House of Delegate and a former local attorney, a father of a current attorney in Covington, and a number of our, Bill Wilson, who is a longtime supporter of the college and foundation board member, was a partner of his, along with Helen Costel's husband, George Costel, who was one of the founders, frankly, of the community college system when he was also in the legislature. And Buildings and Grounds, as you can see, is NA. And the Rockbridge Regional Center is not on here because we don't own the building, and it's only called the Rockbridge Regional Center. There's no other named. Okay. So let me stop there and just get some thoughts about the buildings.
John, I just want to say I appreciate you doing the research on all the buildings. It just shows Dabney's sensitivity to the topics at hand that are out in the community right now. And I know that took up a lot of time, effort, research. So I thank you for trying to be sensitive to the issues and the topics that are being addressed right now within the state of our nation.
Well, thank you, Ingrid. As you can see, I still have a number of holes. So to be able to, this is far from being ready to send to the state board, good or bad. It's just that this is the information that I've been able to find since July. Okay. But from the buildings perspective, I do think that we have, I'm comfortable in saying that I do not think that we have any issues from the buildings. And just think, for $1 million, you can have your name on the buildings and grounds building. Okay.
Ingrid, he asked you before I did.
No, actually, probably not that much. That building is not that big, but
Well, with that being said, John, I think we trust you enough, and I know that we're looking at whatever time it is right now. But
yeah, well, but I want to be, I mean, we still have at least a half hour. So, I mean, I understand that.
Move on past the building.
Yeah, I do. I didn't want to send this in advance because I wanted to sort of share what the report, what this is. And you know, some of you know these people, knew these individuals, and if you did know something, good or bad, and you could share it, that would be appreciated, because I do want to make sure that we have exhaustive lists of the information in this. I started using this form more as a tool. We have not been advised as what type of report they will, that the state board will ask us for, but I just thought that at least as a start, even some of the years I haven't put in that they were named, but I know I have all of that.
John, does the state have a criteria for this? I mean, I appreciate the history, but
does the state? No. Andy, for buildings, I think that is I think where the state is backtracking right now, because they did not have criteria where if you check all these boxes, then you can name, you know, some guidance for the local board. Okay. Now, the interesting thing, just as an aside, there are buildings named at more than one college after the same person in our community college. Okay. Well, the chancellor has already said, well, what happens if one local board says we're changing the name of that building and the other local board says, no, we're not changing that name? Then he's going to have to get involved with that. I have asked Blue Ridge President and Virginia Western if there were any of these individuals that potentially had any name, and they did not. They did not, because whatever they were doing, of course, we wanted that information as well. Okay.
And with the name of the college, I know that we danced around that, but
yeah, I'm coming to that now. So the name of the college is less clear, to be very frank. Okay. It is less clear based on a number of items that I have seen and the number of items that I have found quoted in books as well as newspapers. And this is where Nova Wright has helped me a great deal, because Longwood University now, they were Longwood College when Dr. Lancaster was president, has an entire history of all his writings, and we are getting things often, okay, and some speeches that he has included and so forth. A couple of things I did find out is that Dr. Lancaster, because I know the two big things around Brown versus Board of Education was around the resistance and around the bird machine. And in every indication, there was Dr. Lancaster was not part of either one. Okay, he was not part of either one. But there are some very direct quotes that, as the quotes as a whole, could be made as some concerns. Okay, as certainly as some concerns. Okay, around the question of integration. That was his. So Dr. Lancaster, for those that didn't know, was not only president of Longwood, but he was also the first state superintendent of schools in Virginia. Okay, so he has actually had both college as well as K through 12 experience. So, and again, what I have learned about Virginia history has been pretty much reading a lot of this information, okay? And I ordered 3 or 4 books off of eBay in the period of like 2 weeks because I knew that it was just really more to be able to catch up. But there are some either quotes, direct quotes, or even reference to Dr. Lancaster, okay? Including like this one. In 1955, citizens Prince Edward gathered in Longwood College to discuss the county's response to the Brown decisions. The meeting was called by the PTA. Many of the speakers believed that the county should combat school integration at all costs, even going as far as advocating closing the public schools. One of the notable speakers was Longwood president, former state superintendent, Dr. Lancaster. He served, etc. He was not on the speaking docket, but felt moved by a previous discussion of school closure. He argued that we could not afford to close the schools, that would be bad for whites, and that we could not afford to have Negroes running in the streets. Lancaster's remarks concerned citizens on both sides of the issue because he was seen as sensible, educated, and respected man in the community. He was, without a question, a man of the public school system. That was one of the latest ones that, however, there are the opposite side of some of the items that I have found. He was ultimately about the student, okay? But he, so the question is, and this is a question that the president has asked the chancellor. One president said, so is it one strike and you're out? Or is it sort of the other thing to take into consideration was the time that he lived and the time that these comments were made. And I guess the third thing is that, the chancellor said that he would, that the state board would need to sort of look at the entire body of work to make a decision. Now, the local board can choose, can make a decision at some point to recommend a name change, or the state board or the local board can say, although we have found these items, the entire body of work of Dr. Lancaster in this case, does not lend itself to any change. The state board could take your recommendation, or they can reject your recommendation and say your college will change and you can be part of the name change, or the state board could decide, you know, we're going to be XYZ Community College. I'd love to hear thoughts, comments.
Well, let me start by saying that there are a lot of red flags with Dr. Lancaster, a lot of them that I see here so far. Are we basing decisions on just facts of his writings that are found, or having conversations with people who may have known about him, good and bad?
Marilyn, I think that's a great question. I can tell you that 2 days ago, I had a conversation with his grandson to give him a heads up, okay, which I know Ramona knows extremely well and very good friends. And the grandson is somebody that he and I have become friendly. And he spends a portion of his time in Bath County and the rest of the time in Florida. And he's sort of the family historian. He has described himself as the family historian. You know, of course, as a family member, there is some bias, of course, but he also said that, you know, and he wasn't upset about the question because he said that he was going to try to gather some information on the other side, some factual things, to be able to sort of share them with me. Okay. But I did have the conversation. He said that he has a second cousin or somebody who is a woman who's 80 years old that he was going to try to get me in touch with to do exactly what you just said, Marilyn, at least from another family perspective. Okay. Mm-hmm. I can tell you that there's not many people left who knew Dr. Lancaster or knew of him beside second or third generation. He died in 1972 or 3. Okay. So we're really talking, and he had 4 daughters. I met one of them, and one passed away a year ago, November, and the other one passed away in February. He had 4 daughters, and then he's only has grandchildren or great grandchildren at this, and the great grandchildren would have never known him. Only the grandchildren. Mm-hmm. At this point.
I know someone who attended Longwood in the 60s.
Okay.
And if he was there when she was there, I'm sure she would be able to share her knowledge of him. But I wouldn't be able to say whether it's factual or not.
Right. That would be great. I mean, any information would be really great.
Okay. I'll work on that.
John?
Yes, Rusty.
I apologize. My internet has been coming and going, and I just recommend nobody ever use CenturyLink for your internet provider. Some of us don't have a choice. And I missed, unfortunately, what Marilyn had said earlier and some of what you said. But I will tell you that with regards to Prince Edward County, which is where Longwood is located, they actually closed all of their schools in 1959 and did not reopen them until 1965, and only then because the U.S. Supreme Court made them do it.
Yep.
So that's what he was speaking against. And I didn't know whether everybody involved here knew that Prince Edward had gone to that extreme back in the 50s
Yeah.
and early
Right.
60s.
Right.
And I don't know when Lancaster was, for how long he was president at Longwood either. So I can't help you there, Marilyn. I
Yeah.
did know 3 of his grandchildren pretty well and knew a couple of the others a little bit
Okay.
because those 3 lived in Lexington.
Really? Okay.
And many
So-
of them are educators.
Yeah.
Can I interject a broader concept?
Yeah.
If we were to decide that the college's name needed to change.
Dabney, can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Steph.
Go ahead.
Somebody was trying to call in. My question is now today, this is just a discussion, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Just initial discussion. This is the first time we've had this discussion.
You know, my thoughts are that Dabney Lancaster Community College has been around this community for quite some time. Of course, I never knew the history until the moment you just spoke of it. And I know that things are so sensitive in this climate that we're in. I don't know if, you know, anybody digging any further about the name of the school will bring anything up, but I do know that when we're thinking about changing the name of a place where many people have gone to get their education, they've supported this institution. We've had many presidents, one of Dr. Backles, who is still around. I think, you know, even though we want to proceed, I think that the chancellor and what he does, you know, I don't know. I'm so sensitive to things, but I think about defaming people's name for one statement that they made in a climate that was not conducive to where we are now. Now, I know things are happening all across America, but I just want us to be cautious about, you know, how important it is for us to try to maintain some of our history in our community, not as far as it goes back to things that defame people or culture, but how it has supported our community. Also, Dr. Anoni, I thank you for looking up, like Ingrid said, going beyond, you know, digging deep, you know, trying to find out information that would hinder the process of our community. Because right now, our community, we have had some issues, but it hasn't been to the point where it has come where we can't speak to each other. And I just wanted to say that whatever we found out about Mr. Dabney, Dr. Dabney, Superintendent Dabney, the president of Longwood College, no disrespect, but he's gone on. And I think now, you know, we can always make a statement that this is not what we stand on, but these are the things that we've looked into. And I appreciate the effort and I appreciate the sensitivity of everybody that knows what's happening in these United States of America right now. And so, of course, you know, I'm a pastor. So my main thing is that we pray that we remain unified, even with our difference of opinion, that we can all focus on what's best for the students, for the name of the school, and the cost of changing, marketing, you know, all the gear, all the different things that we will have to go through. But I just wanted to say that. And thank you, Dr. Anoni.
Sure. Tammy?
Well, this actually works right in with what Stephanie said, but maybe from a different angle. In the spirit of community unity, were we to decide we weren't comfortable with Mr. Lancaster's name, you know, our blended high school is going to have to change their name.
That's right.
It's down the road far enough that we could perhaps look at a name change that was, I don't know what they'll come up with. I've heard some names batted around, Alcova, but if the college were to change their name, we could do it at the same time that the high school name changes, and do it in the spirit of unity and reaching out to our local students.
Yeah.
It's just a concept that I wanted to throw out there.
So I do think, though, this is me speaking, I don't have this for a fact, that if the state board makes any decision in March, I think there is going to be some expectation that we begin the name change as early as July 1st of 2021. And it will not be 3 years down the road. Now, understanding that it will cost, so my last community college, we were established as a technical college. And then the state changed its name to a community college. So there wasn't any issues. It was just that the community college system was created. And we only had, at my college, we only had one building, and it still cost us about $25,000 to change everything. And that was probably close to 18 years ago. I did a very, very rough, and we would need at least $100,000 conservatively to change names and everything that has been included. And the chancellor realizes that, and I do think that if whatever colleges are going to be changing their name, there probably will be some financial support, because I do think that if the decision is being made in March, it could be, okay, not necessarily this July 1st, but July 1st of 2022, you're going to have to be completely changed, giving you a year and a half type of thing. But
So
Tammy,
John,
I hear what you're saying.
So John, are you saying that the chancellor could make a recommendation, and the recommendation cannot even come from our board to make sure to ensure that the name change occurs?
So yeah, so we can make a recommendation that these are the findings, but the body of work does not justify, in our opinion as a board. And you know what, for those that have been on this board a long time, this is the heaviest topic that a local board has really have had to deal with. You know, approving, no offense, Ben, but approving curriculum changes and everything, those are easy. Okay, this is really the heaviest thing. But I think that was Ingrid who asked that question. The recommendation can come from this board, but the state board can either accept the recommendation or say, nope, based on what we're reading it differently, you will be required to change your name. And the state board has the authority over the college names. The local board has over the building names.
Well, and there's also the thought that we will lose funding if there's a name change also possible.
Or you could gain funding.
Yeah, I mean, it can go either way, but.
Yes, and you know what? That's right, because some of my fellow presidents are very concerned about private funding and changing the name. Okay, but you know, the state funding, frankly I'm less worried about the state funding than I am the private funding, because I think that and to be very honest, and I've shared this with a couple of you, at my review in June, one of the items that the chancellor started asking me was, so how are you coming along with this process? And, you know, I told him at that point where we were and everything else, and said that, you know, our board wasn't really going to have a discussion until September. I asked him right out. I feel like after 7 years, I know him pretty well. I said, is this a done deal? frankly, those 7 colleges that have names after people, is this just going to happen no matter what we find? Because I joked with the couple, I said, am I writing a dissertation or am I writing a term paper? You know, do we have to do really, you know, are we trying to publish a novel or just something smaller? And he looked in the screen to me and he said, it is not a done deal. The state board will take each name individually and it is not a blanket approval. And so I'm taking his word for it, because that was my concern initially. Is this just, you know, a blanket to say, we want you to do this homework, but no matter what you find, it's really going to change. It's really going to change. So what you have on the, just so you know, what you have is actually Longwood's. Dabney was president from 46 to 55 after he was the state superintendent of public instruction from 41 to 46.
Would a local board recommendation have any more weight if it came with input from the community? I mean, I don't.
Yes, yes, and that's part of the reason. So the survey, some of you completed the survey that I sent out. I've only received 18 responses, okay? But our marketing department, now that I've spoken to Dabney's grandson, and I wanted to do that because before we sent out the survey to just let him know what we were doing. We will be pushing that survey out to the community for input, okay? That survey is pretty broad, but it was used actually by John Tyler Community College. And they shared that, and I just felt like I just felt like that was perfect just to get people's input just in general, because that's where somebody, say like Ingrid, might have known, you know, Mrs. McCarthy or something of McCarthy Hall, okay, and just be able to do that. I have had a couple of responses just that basically said, I don't think there's anything wrong with the names of the building or the name of the college, without any facts. They were just more of opinion. I have had some others provide some details, okay? But honestly, very thin in any additional evidence. But Marilyn, to your, or I think Marilyn made that point, is that I think that, yes, the more input we can get from the community, okay, good or bad, right, you know, plus or minus,
right,
I think will certainly make the case in either way of what we or I'm not a voting member, but the 10 of you to make a decision or a recommendation, not a decision.
John, did you get a confirmation in your discussion with the grandson?
Did I get, no. It was, I think he was a little surprised in my conversation, in my initial conversation. And I feel like I know him well, so it was just, it was an open conversation. He really appreciated me sharing that and everything. And I will follow up with him very soon to, you know, now that he's had some time to process, to see if there's information that he can actually share. He sort of said this tongue in cheek, and he said, well, if they change the name, I want my big portraits back. The portraits that are in my president's suite, that's his great grandfather and his uncle, and, you know, and everything. And these were one of the first times I met with him, you know, my wife and I, we went to his cabin that you know, we spent an afternoon with him. And you know, he appreciated, even at that time, he said none of the previous presidents really cared about the history of the college. And then we ended up doing that book, the What's Your Story book. And Rob was actually interviewed as part of the, you know, as part of the What's Your Story book and everything. So he told grandfather stories and so forth. And
Well, Dr. Renoni, I don't know
yes,
I don't know if you're looking at the clock or not, but it's 5:47.
I am.
We can talk till midnight.
I am. Well, and that's really, and Mr. Chair, if you feel like we need to schedule another meeting even before December, you have the right to try to gather people even another time with this.
That may not be a bad idea. Let's discuss that.
But I would suggest is giving us a little bit more time. Like, I wouldn't suggest next week. You know, just giving us a little bit more time to maybe put some more information together. And then I will send you the drafts that I have for you to really read through them, including any documents. I mean, I can just attach documents.
Okay.
You know, and everything. But it may take another meeting even before December, maybe potentially with this being the only agenda item.
Right.
I'd like to have the survey input maybe before we have a
Yes.
discussion.
Yeah, Tammy, I think that's great. And somebody mentioned in the chat if I could resend the survey, I'm going to resend it to everybody. And I've asked our marketing team to push it out on social media. It's pretty generic. So, because we really want the community input and everything, I sent it to faculty, staff, our foundation board, our local board. I sent it to some community leaders as well. It was all blind copy, so nobody, you know, can see anybody else's email. I will turn around and resend that out for input. And even if you have filled it out and sort of have some different thoughts, please fill it out again. I had one student complain about something of class this time, and it was like it had nothing to do with, but generally everybody else was sort of on point.
And I think Rob will have some more information history-wise to.
Yes, I agree, Ramona.
He will be looking into that.
Yeah, I agree.
I have a feeling that there's an awful lot of questions that we'll think of in 10 minutes. And I would like to sort of have an email discussion, you know, if we can, because community surveys being taken based on ignorance because nobody knows. I mean, I learned some things today that I had never known.
Right.
And it's eye-opening.
So Andy, the only thing we have to be careful about is if all of you, and that's why I've been communicating with you a lot, blind copy. If all of you, if the email goes out to 3 or more of you, they become public documents.
Right.
Okay. And it's considered and it's considered a meeting. Okay. Especially in the Zoom world that we're in right now. So what we could do is we could create a Google form or another survey where you could post questions or something, or some document that, I mean, eventually whatever your decision is, it's going to be public anyway. Okay. But I just want to be careful with information leading up to that. That's all. But I think it's a great idea, Andy, is just to be able to continue this conversation.
I just wanted to ask.
I'm sorry, Steve.
Are you going to send us what you have gathered, the information you've gathered?
Yes. I will do that. Ingrid?
So I just wanted to ask one other question. How much of what you have discovered or uncovered is actually been made public knowledge?
Not much, unless, I mean, it's information that's out there, but I have not shared that document with anybody.
Yeah,
Except
but
for
without,
James.
yes, but without you doing the research, none of us would even have.
That's
been
right.
there.
That's right.
So
That's
that's
right.
what I'm worried about, the implications of once it becomes aware, the public becomes aware. I'm worried about the implications of the reactions. And I think, you know, one of my things that I'm really concerned about right now in this environment, and that's why I think it's so important for our local governments to start the conversation. And when we began, but it just kind of fell apart, and I think they're going to start it back again. We need to make sure that all of this decisiveness and all of this separation and all of this us and them, I'd like to try to have as least of that here in Allegheny County as we can possibly have in our environment right now, because there's just so much of it now, and I see a lot of it on social media, and it does nothing for the greater good of our community for us to be so separated.
That's right.
So,
That's
you
right.
know, as far as having the information, I'm just not sure about how we will distribute that to the community, because I think it's just going to cost more decisiveness.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Quote
go-
my father when he said, "The more you stir it, the more it stinks."
Yeah. And I think that's right. I think that if we can share the document with all of you, and I got ways to do that appropriately. Okay. But, you know, you're right. I mean, not many people know who Dabney was. Okay. But if we can do our due diligence of trying to get the public input, as well as the information that we can find, and then all of you can make the appropriate recommendation, I think that's all we can do is to attempt to, you know, good or bad. And we would have to do that for any building as well. And I do think that once you start reading some of the information, the buildings are really not in question. I hope this, yeah, so it's 5:54, Mr. Chair. I think that I will, just to put a pin in this, I will share the information again. I'll share the information that was found with all of you. We will get the survey out again. Okay. And we will then, maybe sometime in October, maybe we should talk about having another meeting with, and we have to give Phyllis a week's notice just to put it on a public, on the statewide public agenda, et cetera, you know, that type of thing. So even if this is just the, agenda, the full agenda, the only agenda item, and even if the minutes from tonight are not done, we'll save the minutes for the December meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, could I ask one more question?
Yes.
Since Ingrid made the very good point that we really want to be doing all we can do to keep our community together. And that means that if the state board makes a decision, then in effect, we're going to have to be doing all we can do to try to keep the community together. And so that means the sooner we know if they've made that decision, the better off everybody's going to be. So I just asked John to know it.
Yes. Yes, that's exactly right, Rusty.
Thank you.
Would I hear a motion we adjourn?
Since I've been sitting here at 11, it would be my pleasure to make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Motion to adjourn been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Meeting's adjourned.
I want to thank everybody for joining us. We had perfect attendance tonight. This is an important topic, and really appreciate the input, and we will be in touch with you very soon.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Get through it.